The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey everyone, on behalf of our team here at Odell, I want to thank you for joining another one of our Isolation Intelligence webinars. Today we have Mike Murphy. He's the National Sales Manager for Monoxivent, and he's going to be taking us through best practice designs for source capture systems. Just a few housekeeping things before we get started. If you have questions, you can ask your questions over on the right-hand side there, and all the questions we'll get to at the end, unless you have one that you want to ask with that's relevant to the context that we're talking about. You can raise your hand. If you raise your hand, I'll just cut in and we'll ask the question right away, but otherwise we'll get to all of them at the end. If you want to download a copy of the presentation, you can see that under handouts. You can get the PDF of this presentation that Mike's about to go through here. Other than that, this recording will be available on our website tomorrow afternoon at the latest, and you can also download the handout there. So without further ado, I give you Mike Murphy. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, thanks, Cam, and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for allowing me to come into your homes. I hope everybody's safe and sound. Again, appreciate the opportunity. With that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. One thing I wanted to say, as I go through the presentation, we're going to talk a little bit about the history of Monoxivent and what we do, but the majority of the content is going to be about solutions for these types of applications. I have a couple of product videos, and for whatever reason, the software of GoToMeetings isn't allowing the audio to come through. And I thought about getting rid of them, but I really want you to see some of this product in action. So forgive me for the audio missing, but I will kind of talk through and point out some of the things in particular that I want to show you during the video. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Now, Monoxivent is a source capture company. We want to capture contaminants at the source of creation. So if you think of vehicle exhaust, it's going to be at the tailpipe, or welding exhaust at the point of weld. And there's two main reasons that we believe this to be source capture to be the best and most effective solution for these applications. Number one, it is the most effective way of protecting the breathing zone of the worker, right? So that's job one. Number two, in general, it is the least expensive solution because our capture is focused at the point of exhaust creation. We don't remove a lot of air from the room. So in general, a source capture solution is going to be less expensive than general air ventilation and the makeup air that comes with those types of solutions. All right, so Monoxivent has been around since 1953, right? So we've been around for a long time. We started out in Detroit, Michigan. And in the mid-1990s, we moved from Detroit, Michigan to a place called the Quad Cities, or actually we're located in Rock Island, Illinois, and then there's four communities right there. You have Rock Island, Illinois, Moline, Illinois, and right across the Mississippi River, you have Bettendorf, Iowa, and Davenport, Iowa. And those four communities make up what's known as the Quad Cities, right? So it's about 2.5 hours west of Chicago, right along the Mississippi River. And then in the year 2000, we were purchased by a company called Crawford. And why that's significant, Crawford has many different divisions, right? So they have laser cutting and welding and fabrication capabilities. And that really helps Monoxivent kind of make sure that we have solutions for every type of application. So really, if there's an application that you have and there's not an off-the-shelf solution for you, we can design one, we can fabricate it, we can try it out, and as long as it works, we can mass produce it. And we do it right here in Rock Island, Illinois. Then the other division I like to point out is we also make brew tanks for the craft beer industry. And I say that for two reasons. One, I just think it's kind of a cool industry, and I enjoy partaking in some of those brews. But I think more importantly is if you ever go to a microbrewery and you see kind of the sophistication of the fabrication of the tanks and the process that those applications involve, it's a really good calling card for our customization capabilities. And you'll see as I go through, we can make custom tanks, we can make custom hoods, custom solutions for all different types of applications. And not only can we do it, but we do it every day and we do it very well. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started on some of the product, right? So why is source capture important? Well, if you think about the exhaust that comes through, in particular diesel engines, the particulate in diesel exhaust is a known carcinogen. It's a known cancer-causing agent. right? So we want to make sure that we're not breathing that in. And there's a lot of other things that occur with your respiratory system, right? Bronchitis, reduced lung capacity, all of that is a byproduct of the diesel exhaust. So we want to make sure we don't breathe it in. But even beyond that, regular gas exhaust, the gas in the gas exhaust itself is poisonous. If you look at compressed natural gas, you certainly don't want to breathe that in. Those gases are poisonous to the human body. So we want to make sure that we capture all of that before you breathe it in. Now, there's many ways to do this. The first one I'm showing you is what we call a spring hose reel. And the spring hose reel has a couple components that I want to point out to you here. So here's our hose reel. This is our spring cassette. This is our hose. This is our tailpipe adapter. And this is what we call a hose stop. And a spring hose reel works almost like a window shade where we pull that hose down, and when we stop pulling, it kind of locks or latches in place, and we use it. When we're done, we let it recoil. But I want it to stop recoiling when this is about 6 foot above finished floor so that the average sized person can reach up and use it. And it's important because sometimes I'm installed at 13 or 14 feet above finished floor. Occasionally I'm installed as high as 40 feet above finished floor. But I want this to stop recoiling when this is about 6 feet above finished floor. And that's where this hose stop comes in. Depending on where I'm installed at or what height I'm installed at, we position this so that as it begins to recoil, this is positioned so it'll stop this from going any further than about 6 feet above finished floor. Now I'm going to show you a video, and again, I apologize for the lack of audio, but in the video you're going to see this was a vertical exhaust application. So all of the vehicles that come to this particular bay are vertical stacks. So take a look at how we configured a solution for the vertical stack. Now what you see here, it's very simple for this gentleman to reach up. We call this a lifting pole with a hook, and that's a lifting sleeve. He pulls it down, he lifts it up and places it right over the stack of the vehicle. So very, very easy to do, very user friendly. Now, basically, you can see that they're all tied into a central exhaust or a central fan. And now when he wants to take it off, again, very simple. Puts the lifting pole into the lifting sleeve, lets it go. He'll pull it down, and then the spring will pull it back up and out of the way. One of the things I like about this particular video is notice how relatively short the length of hose is. You don't need a lot because you're not really going a great distance, and that's a cost-saving measure. All right, next we have what we call our L series hose. And the L stands for large, right? So the spring hose that I was showing you earlier goes 4-inch, 5-inch, or 6-inch, and you could do some very limited 8-inch applications. When you get to a longer 8-inch application, because 8-inch hose is heavier, you can overwhelm a single spring cassette. And the next logical thing to do would be to move you into the motorized hose reels. Motorized hose reels can handle more weight, but they are more expensive. So what we did is we were trying to bridge that gap. We added a second spring cassette. Now this second spring cassette, it doesn't double the weight capacity, but it increases it enough that we can handle the majority of 8-inch applications and keep you in the spring hose reel family. So theoretically, I can do up to 44 feet of 8-inch diameter hose wrapped completely around this drum. I say theoretically because in reality, if I need 41, 42 feet of that 44 feet of hose, by the time I pull that much hose off of the reel, my spring tension is so tight, I'm fighting it every step of the way. So what I say is, yes, we can do 44 feet theoretically, but in general, I like it to keep about 36 feet of 8-inch diameter hose. And that's going to handle the majority of those types of applications. Next, we have our motorized hose reels. Now, motorized hose reel go from 4-inch, 5-inch, 6-inch, all the way up to, I'm going to show you one that can handle up to 65 feet of 18-inch diameter hose. Now, what I have in this picture, the one on the left is what we call a box motor or direct drive. And the one on the right is what we call a tube type motor, where there's actually a tube motor in this area here. And if I were to open this panel, you would see a gear and a chain and a sprocket. They have different lifting capacities. You would never have to worry about that because we would put you in one or the other based on your hose type, your hose length, and your hose dimension, or I'm sorry, diameter. But I like to point them out because you may see this one on project A and this one on project B, and really the main difference is going to be the weight capacity that we need. So we'll make the best selection. Now, the next video that I show you, you're going to see a fire truck up on a lift and a pickup truck pulling into a bay. All things being equal, I could have used a spring hose reel, 6-inch diameter hose, 600 CFM, and it would have worked flawlessly, except in this particular application, above the lift, there's an overhead crane that travels back and forth. And with a spring hose reel, like I told you earlier, I need the hose hanging down to be able to reach it. Well, that's always going to be an impediment to the travel of that overhead crane. So one way to overcome that is by utilizing a motorized hose reel. So you can see simply by pushing up or down, we can bring the hose up or down. In this case, we're bringing it down. You're going to see him attach it to the vehicle. And it's the standard vice grips that comes on, and we have a ton of different tailpipe adapters, but that's a popular one. Now you can see up in the air here, this is when it's drawn up. So when that overhead crane needs to travel over the lift area, we can simply press that button, unhook it from the vehicle, press the button, put the hose all the way up around the reel and make room for that overhead crane to go back and forth. Once it's done, we can bring the hose back down simply by pressing the button again. So I think you get the idea there. And then lastly, for hose reels is what we call the XL series hose reel. XL stands for extra large, and this is the one that can handle up to 65 feet of 18-inch diameter hose wrapped completely around the drum. Now you may ask yourself, where would you ever need this type of air movement? Well, I can tell you we have many of these at John Deere for large agricultural equipment, for Caterpillar, for large mining equipment. We have them in military applications for tanks, large military type vehicles, things like that. So wherever you have a large engine running and running at high RPM potentially, we're going to need that type of air movement. And in order to get that air movement, we're going to need that diameter of hose. So the XL hose reels are a very popular solution for those types of applications. Now what I have here, in this particular case, it's a motorized hose reel, but it really doesn't matter if this is motorized or spring. I have a complete solution with a very small work envelope. So I have my hose reel, my hose, my tailpipe adapter, and in this case, I have a direct mount fan. And in this case, the discharge of the fan is going up through the roof. But if I have an opportunity, rather than make another roof penetration, maybe I'm up against an outside wall, I'd rather go through the sidewall. This can be rotated either at our factory or it can be rotated in the field, right? So again, nice complete work solution, very small work envelope. Now, the other part I like about this is we do a lot of work for high school vocational areas or centers. So we do a lot of work with kids. I can put a switch on here called the DMS HR switch, or direct mount switch to hose reel, so that when the kids either bring the hose down motorized or they pull it down with a spring hose reel, the fan starts automatically. And when they let the hose retract, the fan turns off automatically. So the idea there is we've taken some of the decision making away from the kids, and to ensure that if they pull that hose down and they attach it to a running vehicle, the fan is on and operating, and we're eliminating all of that exhaust. Now, with all of that being said, I do not have to have a direct mount fan to utilize that type of a start system. So let's say I have 5 hose reels and 1 central fan. I would put the DMS HR switch on every hose reel, and the first hose reel that brings the hose down starts the fan, but the fan does not turn off until the last hose reel has had the hose retracted. All right, this is what we call our exhaust system design worksheet. It's actually a 2-page document, and it's designed to ask the questions that we'll need the answers to if you would like our help in designing a system. So it's a 2-page document. As an example, on the second page, it asks the question, is there an overhead crane in this area? Because you may not even think of that as potentially being an obstacle. So I would like every answer completely filled out. I never get that, right? More information, the better solution we can come up with, but I never get that. So at the very least, I need to know cubic inch of displacement or liter size of the engine. So horsepower of the engine doesn't give me what I need. Cubic inch of displacement or liter, I can convert them back or forth. And then maximum operating RPM of the engine. How are these engines being utilized? Because if it's just a tune-up or idling type application, that's on the lower scale. But if you're doing you're doing dyno testing, that brings it way up higher. I need to know exactly what the engine is and how it's going to be utilized for me to come up with the proper solution for you. All right. Next is what we call our overhead system. An overhead system works similarly to a hose reel in the sense that everything is up and off the floor, so you have a nice, safe, clean working environment. They're designed to capture 100% of what's conveyed through the tailpipe. Plus, we like to design it to capture another 20% of ambient air. And the reason we do that is twofold. Number one, and most importantly, if I'm bringing in ambient air, I'm certainly capturing everything that's coming through the tailpipe. Number two, that ambient air helps cool the exhaust as it goes through the equipment. And we'll talk about this in a few minutes, but when you're working on a high temp system, that ambient air helps cool that exhaust, and it can help save costs by reducing that temperature and allowing you to get a lower temp rated hose. So with that being said, the beauty of an overhead system is it works just like a hose reel. And if you look here, if I pick one and I just follow it down and back up, there's a lifting sleeve here, and it's attached to a ratcheted balancer. You can kind of see the balancer here and here. And then down here it has a tailpipe. Or a tailpipe adapter. So when the mechanic wants to use it, they pull it down. When they stop pulling, that balancer locks or latches in place. You use it. When you're done, you pull it down again, and unlatches and brings everything up and off the floor. So it works very similar to a hose reel, yet it's not as expensive as a hose reel, so that's a positive. The negative may be that because you have the loops of hose here, it's not as aesthetically pleasing. So it really depends on your customer, what their budgets allow for and what their tastes allow for. Over here, this is the least expensive system on the market. What I have here is what we call our RTS, or retractable telescoping system. In its fully open stage, it has 3 sections. This first section is a 3-inch diameter hose with a tailpipe adapter. The second section is 4-inch, and the third section is 5-inch. When it's all collapsed together, it looks like this. So everything fits inside each other. There's a chain with a J-hook on the adapter, and there's an eyelet on this silver collar here. So pardon me, you fit everything in together. You put the J-hook in the eyelet. That's how you keep it up and off the floor. When you want to use it, you unhook it, bring everything down, and attach it to the vehicle. The positive aspect of this is that it's about $450 US list price, right? So that's not counting the ductwork and the fan. So very inexpensive, very popular system. What some people would perceive to be a negative is because my lowest section is 3-inch diameter, I can't do more than about 150 CFM through that. And what that means to you is that's strictly for automobiles only, and only in a tune-up or idling type application. But if that's your application, this is a very inexpensive solution. Now take a look here. You'll see 2 different sides, or 2 different rows of bays with the overhead system. Each side has its own fan, right? So all of these on the left are tied into a central fan. All of these on the right are tied into a central fan. The beauty of that is that if something ever happened down the road to the fan, hopefully the other fan is up and running and you still are able to capture that exhaust. Now you can take a look here. This is the balancer system. It's locked in place. He attaches it to the tailpipe, utilizing the chain with the J-hook. And then when he's done, he just undoes it, pulls it down a little bit, and lets it fall back into place. So very user-friendly, very easy to use, up and out of the way. All right, next we have what we call our swivel boom arms and pack arms. Pack is PAC, or pivoting articulated crane. So the difference between the two, the one on the left is what we call a swivel boom. It comes in 7, 10, or 13-foot lengths. It has what we call a shoulder joint here, and whatever we put on here, I can put, whether it's a hose drop or going to be a welding arm or it could be a hood, it'll move from one side all the way to the other side. So it allows us to reach into an area where maybe we don't have a wall or a column to attach to. This allows us to reach in and be able to cover those types of areas. Now the pack arm, or pivoting and articulated crane, it comes standard in 10, 15, or 20-foot lengths, and it has a shoulder joint like the swivel boom, but it also has what we call an elbow joint here. So not only will it reach out and cover from one side to the other, but I can bend here and cover more area inside this as well. So this gives me more coverage. It is a little bit more expensive, so it just depends on the application and what the best solution would be for it. Now these are portable systems. I don't know, when I'm talking with engineers, I don't know how often you would design a portable system into your design solution, but potentially your customer has an existing facility and they're building a new facility, but they still need to capture this type of exhaust. In my opinion, a portable system is perfect for that because they don't want to invest in any permanent equipment into the old facility. They could all utilize this portable system and bring it with them to the new facility. So what I have here, this is my fan. This is my collection hose. Notice this tailpipe adapter over here is for vertical stack. There's an adjustable cane here for support that allows me to go up or down, so to make sure I got great coverage over this vertical stack. And then notice this quick disconnect here. So if my next vehicle is an under chassis tailpipe, I simply disconnect here. Now I have this lower hose section, and over on this wall I would have a tailpipe adapter with a coupler on it. I simply bring over, attach it to this coupler here, and now that easy and quickly I'm able to handle the under chassis tailpipe exhaust. Then on the discharge side, this configuration has a spring hose reel, which makes it very user friendly. And then you just allow this hose to wrap all the way around it when it's not in use. When it's in use, you stretch it out. I always go through a man door or an overhead door, but what I recommend, if you're going to use it regularly, let's put a door port or a wall port in here so you don't have to open and close your door. You can simply exhaust it right through the door port or the wall port. Now this one here is a very similar unit minus the spring hose reel. So in this case, it'll save you some money if you don't want the spring hose reel. And there's a hose storage rack right on this area here, this cart frame, and then you put the discharge hose right on that. The one down at the bottom is strictly for automobiles. It's about 40 pounds. It comes with 10-foot collection hose, 10-foot discharge hose. And you can see the handle here. You can carry it around, use it wherever you need to, and then again, just discharge to the outside. Next is an underground system. Now, underground systems were very, very popular in the beginning. Back in like 1953, you saw that first slide where it shows an underground system. So they've been around for a long time. And there's a lot of positives to an underground system. So if you look here, all your duct work is underground. So if there's no vehicle here or you're not utilizing the system here, all you see is a door port or a floor port. So it's very clean, nice, safe area. When you want to use it, you open the door port, you pull the hose out. Again, the hose is stored underground, and you attach it to the vehicle. So those were the positives. The negatives would be that most engineers were using galvanized ductwork or PVC coated galvanized ductwork, and the earth is corrosive by nature. And then like where I'm from here in Michigan, in the wintertime, we use rock salt. You can imagine the rock salt makes its way into that ductwork, or the whatever we're washing the floor with, or whatever we're washing the vehicles with. So combined with the corrosive nature of the earth, what was happening is that ductwork would start to deteriorate. And when it deteriorates, it can collapse on itself and impede its airflow, thus rendering it useless. In order to correct that, you'd have to pull up all that flooring and replace the ductwork. Well, that's a very expensive endeavor, and most people aren't going to do that. Well, what we've done to overcome that, we've invented what we call our underduct VE. It's a fiberglass reinforced plastic ductwork designed to handle the temperatures that you'll see in vehicle exhaust, but it is not negatively impacted by the corrosive nature of the earth, right? So it'll handle up to 500 degrees Fahrenheit. And as you see here, it will be there as long as the building is there. It will not deteriorate as far as the construction of the ductwork itself. Now, underduct VE is the only non-metallic vehicle exhaust duct certified to meet building codes by the ICC. So again, it's just one of those things that it really enhances one of our core products. And today, it's very popular. My guess is, and I haven't done my homework, but my guess is about 95% of the underground systems that we do today utilizes this underduct VE as their ductwork. Now, the last thing on that would be, in most instances for overhead systems, for hose reel systems, we don't supply the ductwork. That's normally supplied locally through the mechanical contractor. In this case, we would supply the ductwork, and we can supply everything, right? So all the equipment, the fan, the ductwork. And the beauty of that, it's one purchase order, but I think even more importantly, it's one point of responsibility. So if there were any issues, you'd only have one manufacturer to come to and say, hey, you know, you got to take care of this, and we always do. All right, rail systems. Now, rail systems are very popular in fire stations, in particular if you have vehicles in tandem that follow each other out or drive-through applications. Well, Monoxivent doesn't service the fire market. We left that market about 5 years ago, but we do sell a lot of rail systems. Pardon me. And our biggest customer for rails are car dealerships. Car dealerships, for whatever reason, they like well, it's kind of a sleek design, right? So they like the sleek design of a rail system, but I think functionality is the key. So if you think about it like this is the trolley, here's our rail, and here's an overhead drop. Let's say I have 8 bays, and this is your car dealership, and you've come to me and said, Mike, I need to get a source capture system involved. My first question to you would be, out of your 8 bays, how many engines do you ever have running at the same time? Right? So I have to always work around worst case scenarios. And it's never going to be 100%. There'll be a diversity factor of 30 or 40, whatever that number is. So let's say you go, Mike, I never run more than 3 vehicles at the same time. My next question to you would be, well, do you want to just designate 3 bays and we'll put the source capture system in those 3 bays? And 99.9% of the time you're going to say, no, I need the flexibility to start an engine in any of my 8 bays. So again, theoretically, I put 8 hose reels in or 8 overhead systems in. Well, with my rail system, I can run my rail from bay 1 to bay 8. I can put 3 drops in, whether it's this type of a drop or a hose reel or a retractable system, and then I can move them wherever I need them, right? So I have 3 drops. If my 8th bay needs a drop because it's running the vehicles, my first one goes down there, then maybe it's the 5th bay and the 3rd bay. So I position them. The idea behind designing a rail system is that no matter where my drop stops, it's designed to capture the design CFM. So in this particular case, it looks like it's all automobiles. That would be, let's say, 300 CFM. No matter where I stop along this bay, I'm able to capture 300 CFM and evacuate the exhaust through the rail to the ductwork and from the ductwork to the outside. Now, these are just some different application photos. If you take a look and you think of it almost like ducting, this is our Techno rail. It's probably, well, it is for sure the most popular of all our rail. And that's almost like, if you think of it like a 6-inch diameter duct, right? So if you were using duct principles, you would think of this as up to a 6-inch diameter. This is the ALU 150. This would be up to like an 8-inch diameter duct. And then the ALU 250 shown here would be like a 10-inch diameter duct. And we can go larger from there. Now, I told you earlier we can do overhead systems, we can do hose reels, and we can do the RTS system, but we could also do this for welding applications. So maybe you have 5 welding stations in a row, but you only have 2 welders. Well, in that case, you'll never weld more than, you know, two of those stations at a time. So I could run my rail from bay 1 to bay 5, put my 2 drops in, and this can travel up and down wherever I need it to capture that welding exhaust. All right, these are some of the tailpipe adapters. Now, these are a higher end tailpipe adapter. Good quality product, but more costly. Most of the entities don't need this level of quality, and they're not willing to pay for it, but some insist on it, right? So a Porsche dealer, Mercedes dealer, places like that, they're going to demand it. In general, this is the more popular selection, right? So we have stainless steel, we have galvanized, we have vice grips or spring clamps or the chain with the J hook. We have dual exhaust. We call them Y-kit assemblies for dual exhaust. Any configuration of vertical stack or below chassis tailpipe that's out there today, we have solutions for. And as they come out with new one, and probably the latest one that I could think of is like the Gillig bus vertical stack, we have solutions for that. It's very easy for us to take a look at it, design one, fabricate it, and again, as long as it works, we can mass produce it. So here's some sizing guidelines. Now this is strictly for normal tune-up and idling type applications, right? And that's the most popular. This is not for dynamometers. This is not for hydraulic testing, heavy pump testing, things like that. We have solutions for all of that. We would just need to know more information about those applications. But in general, for normal tune-up and idling type applications, for cars and light trucks, I'm going to be 4-inch diameter hose, 300 CFM. Medium trucks and light buses, like let's say ambulance-sized vehicles, 5-inch diameter hose, 450 CFM. And then for my semi-trucks, my dump trucks, the public transportation buses, some industrial equipment, some ag equipment, I'm going to be at 6-inch diameter hose, 600 CFM. My conveying velocity is going to be in the neighborhood of 2,000 to 2,500 feet per minute. And that's as recommended by the Industrial Ventilation Guidebook, right? They're saying, and we know it to be true, in order to remove the particulate from this type of exhaust and remove the exhaust itself, that's the velocity that we need to keep it going from the hose to the duct, from the duct to the outside. All right, recommended hose types. Our 5000 series hose is perfect for cars and light trucks and tune-up applications. It's got a great bending radius, so it's perfect for overhead systems, for hose reels. It can handle 350 degrees continuous and up to 550 degrees intermittent. The 4000 series hose, again, has a great bending radius, so it's perfect for overhead systems and hose reels. Now, this is for higher temperatures, so this will do 600 degrees Fahrenheit continuous and up to 1250 degrees intermittent. All right, so now fume detection systems. Not every vehicle exhaust application lends itself to source capture. And as an example of that, I always use like a public parking garage, right? So there's a lot of cars going in or out or idling while they're in there, but there's no way you'd ever get them to connect to a hose reel or an underground system or an overhead system. So what we did is we partnered up with Honeywell. These are actually Honeywell systems, and we partnered up with them to add them to our product line because they just go so nicely together. But these work where they monitor the air, and the sensors are set for certain thresholds, and when those thresholds are met, it can turn an evacuation fan on. It can open up louvers to bring fresh air in, all of that. So it was just a perfect kind of partner equipment with our source capture stuff. So that's it for vehicle exhaust. Now what I wanted to do is talk about some of our other source capture arms. The most popular application for these arms are welding applications, and so they're commonly known as welding arms or snorkels. But in general, the welding is certainly the most popular application. But I want you to think outside the box just a little bit. So this picture that you see is an exact replica of a solution that I used for Home Depot repair facility, where they had a bunch of benches set up and they were working on small motors, like a weed whacker motor, lawn mowers, things like that. And you can take this configuration, you can pull that handle of the hood and position it right at the exhaust port, and it'll hold the position. And in this case, you can see it has a direct mount fan, so it's bringing all that exhaust in, and then in this case, it was exhausting right out through a sidewall. So that's just one example. Another, I did a large industrial baker where they had a large mixing bowl, and they poured this dry ingredient in, and they'd get a plume of dry ingredient right back into their face as they were pouring. You can use this same arm and position the hood right in front of your face, and now rather than you breathing that in, it's going to be captured into the hood, into the arm, and then exhausted to the outside. So certainly the majority of applications are for welding, but there are other opportunities to utilize this type of a solution. So with all that being said, this is what we call an internally supported arm. And what that means is that there's an internal support structure internal to the hose environment here, right? So there's friction points, so you have different bending areas, and the friction points are tight so you can position it and it'll maintain its position. This particular arm comes in 6-inch or 8-inch diameter, 7, 10, or 14-foot lengths. It comes with a polycarbonate hood with a handle and a damper, and you can either do a direct mount fan or you can tie it into a central fan. Now this is what we call a telescoping welding hood. This is our most popular unit. This comes in 4-inch, 6-inch, or 8-inch, but by far the most popular is the 6-inch application. This is commonly used for welding booths. So maybe, again, high school vocational centers, career tech centers, union apprenticeship shops, things like that. In its collapse state, it's about 3 foot in length, but you can extend it to about 7 foot in length. Right? So doesn't take up a lot of space, but it covers a lot of space. Also, you'll see in the video that I'm about to show you, it comes standard with a polycarbonate hood, but you have options there. So I think in the video itself, you'll see there's a stainless steel welding cone. So you can see he can position this arm, it'll hold this position, right? This is kind of the sweet spot to make sure that it's going right through there, through the ductwork. And in this case, all the ductwork leads to a dust collector. I think this does a great job of showing you the path of the smoke or the exhaust. You can see right here. Now there's friction points in here so that if he uses it enough and they loosen up, he can tighten them up. This is a pack arm, so you can see the reach you can get with a pack arm, and it looks like a 14-foot, 6-inch diameter arm. And then these are laboratory arms. All right, so next we have what we call an externally supported arm. And all that means is that my support structure is external to my hose environment. This particular arm comes in 4-inch, 5-inch, 6-inch, or 8-inch, and you can get it in 5-foot, 7-foot, 10-foot, or 13-foot lengths. Like anything else, you can put a direct mount fan on or tie it into a central fan. And all of our arms, we can put a light kit on it, and we can put a fan on off on it. So basically I can position this arm right over where I need it, turn my light on, turn my fan on, and I'm now hands-free able to do whatever process it is that I'm doing. These are another externally supported arm. So these are not as rugged as the last one I just showed you, but these work very well. They're a little bit less expensive, and they do have longer ranges. So this comes in 4-inch, 6-inch, 8-inch, and it can go up to 36-foot length. You see here, again, the pack arm and the boom arm. These are just the ways to extend the reach of our standard product offering. Now, some sizing guidelines for welding. So in particular, production type welding, I use a 6-inch diameter arm. I'm using 600 CFM at a 2,000 to 2,500 feet per minute conveying velocity. But let's say I regularly weld on an oily or pre-lube type material, so that as I start to weld and that material starts to heat up, it burns that oil, it can really create a lot of exhaust. If that's happening regularly, I may want to look at an 8-inch diameter arm. I have 1,000 CFM. It's going to give me more capture capability to make sure that I'm capturing everything that's being created. Now our mini arms, they can be wall mounted, desktop mounted, or ceiling mounted. They come in 2-inch, 3-inch, or 4-inch. There's different hood configuration depending on what we're trying to capture. There's actually different body material, right? So if it's very corrosive, we use like a polypropylene. I was doing a big job here in Michigan on some circuit boards where they were soldering circuit boards, and they could not afford to have any static electricity discharge because it would negatively impact the circuits on the circuit board. So the arms were made out of a carbon-based material that prevented the buildup and thus the discharge of static electricity. We also have what we call the LFK kit, or local filter kit. So let's say I'm in a large industrial complex and I don't want to tie into a central system. The LFK kit comes with 1 or 2 arms, a small adjustable speed fan, and a small filter. The fan and the filter can fit right underneath your table, and you can do 1 or 2 arms attached right on the bench. So it's an independent system. All right, again, not every application lends itself for source capture, so we do have general free hanging units. And then we also do cyclone collectors and after filters for woodworking shops and things like that. We have what we call a portable cartridge filtration system. So if you look here, it comes on 4 casters. Here's our fan. Here's our media or cartridge. This is what we call a clean out chore. And on the back here, there's a pneumatic nozzle that I can introduce pneumatic air into the ID of this media and blow the particulate off. That particulate falls into the clean out chore and it extends the life of the media. Now this will come with either a 7-foot or a 10-foot arm, 6-inch diameter, and there's a 25-foot electrical cord on the back. So I wheel it in place, position my arm, plug it in, turn it on, and now I have a portable filtration system. If I need a higher level of filtration, this is a very similar unit, but it comes with HEPA filtration. So it's HEPA is 99.97 at 3 micron capability. So maybe I'm in a hospital, a clean room, something like that, where I need that level of filtration. And then this is a very similar unit, except this has one additional component. And this is probably my favorite unit because this is what our guys in our fab shop like to use. It's called the Fill-To unit. So you can see it's very similar to what we just saw, but it's a portable unit with a downdraft table. So they can grind on here, they can weld on here, and it'll capture the particulate, capture the exhaust, and then it can be evacuated right out into the back end of it. This is a downdraft table as well, but these are much larger. They are not portable, but again, it's for grinding, welding. If the air is clean enough, once it goes through the fan and the filter system, it can be evacuated out the back. Otherwise, they would be tied into a dust collection system. Now, this is a dust collection system that we did for Caterpillar. When Caterpillar hires new employees, they like to bring them to I think they call it the Caterpillar Welding Academy, right? They teach their new employees how to weld the Caterpillar way. And they partnered up with Monoxivent and with Crawford because they really like their design here. This is what we call our ergonomically designed downdraft table. So there's a hydraulic pedal here that allows this table to go up or down depending on the height of the operator. So nobody has to work outside of their comfort zone. Now notice here, we did all of this work, all of the booths and everything. Notice here, here's the downdraft table, but there's no filter on it. This is actually being directly sent to the ductwork and from the ductwork all the way to this dust collector here. So we did all of that work for them. They were very happy with our product. All right, so I told you earlier we do a lot of custom work. This is an example of some of the hoods that we do. And I think, again, we do them very well. We do all type of customization. We do have some standard templates available on our website. So this is overhead canopy hood, type 1, type 2, type 3. You would fill in the different dimensions and we can provide you with a quote. This is for slotted barrel hood. But again, if you have something that doesn't fall into these two templates, just give us your idea, some of your dimensions, and we can design something for you and come up with a customized quote for you. Now, as far as fans, there's a lot of great fan manufacturers out there. There's Penberry and Twin City and Cook and Greenhack and all of them. In truth, for us, it really doesn't make a difference as long as our design criteria is met. If our design criteria is met, our systems will work just as well with a Cook fan as a Greenhack fan or vice versa, right? Over here, though, these are our smaller fans. We make these ourselves. These are cast aluminum right in Rock Island. Because they're cast aluminum, they're spark resistant, and then we put a Baldor motor on them. They can be directly mounted like you saw on the hose reel or the arm. They can have a foot mount base. They can have a wall bracket. They can be inside or outside. If I need an explosion proof, I can put an explosion proof motor on it. These come in 0.5 horsepower, 1 horsepower, 1.5, 2, and 3. So very competitively priced, very good quality product for your smaller type applications. All right, VFDs. We're often asked about VFDs, and we don't make VFDs, but again, like the Honeywell fume monitoring stations, we did partner with ABB to offer some of their product. The thing about VFDs with the source capture type equipment is a lot of engineers like to utilize them. The problem is, let's say you have 10 hose reels, right? So let's say it's 10 hose reels, 600 CFM per reel. It's not hard to find a VFD that would handle that. The problem is finding a fan that has a proper range that can go from 10 hose reels running at 4 inches of static pressure all the way down to 1 or 2 hose reels running and maintaining the static pressure and the velocity needed to remove that type of exhaust. So, you know, a lot of engineers think it's a great idea. There are certain applications that I think it has benefits, but in general, I think you're better off. Let's say I have 10 hose reels going maybe one hose reel for 5 and the other hose, I'm sorry, one fan for 5 hose reels and the other fan for 5 hose reels, as opposed to one fan for 10 hose reels. It's easier to control. You can also just say they're on or they're off. You don't necessarily want to design it so that I have 10 hose reels, but I can shut everything down to one hose reel running, because there's a lot of things that have to happen. You have to find a fan that's going to handle that, and you also have, there's going to be intervention from the users, and the idea is to make it as user friendly and really to eliminate as much user I guess user involvement as possible. I would love it where it's simply they attach it to the vehicle and the fan starts automatically, and when they're done they unattach it and let it recoil and turn off. So we can do whatever you want, but I just want you to really think about the usefulness and the ability to get the proper fan for these types of applications. All right, so we have many different hoses. 1000 and 2000 series hose is a metal hose. It's either galvanized or stainless steel. It was very popular for the in-ground system because there's not a lot of friction, very smooth OD. It would go in and out of the ductwork nicely. It's rigid, so it's strong. The problem is if you left this out, someone forgets to put it away and they run it over, it's done. It has to be replaced. So today, most people use our 3000 series hose. It's a crush resistant hose. You could drive over it many times, it'll regain its shape. But these convolutions, it does a couple of things. One, it adds a little bit of friction, so it doesn't go in and out as easy, but most people are willing to put up with that because it often does get left out and they don't want to replace it. And it's not hard, it's just not as easy as the smooth OD of the hose here. 4000 and 5000 series hose we've already spoken about. The 6000 series hose is a lightweight, flame retardant, spark resistant hose that we use on our standard source capture arms. There are other hose selections if we're doing a lot of grinding and the particulate is going to have sharp edges, but we have other hose that we can utilize for that. But in general, this is the standard hose for the welding applications. And then the 7000 series hose is a family of hose, and it's incremental from 350 degrees all the way to 2010 degrees. So a couple of points I want to make here. The higher temperature rating you need, the more costly the hose becomes. So if you truly need 2000 degree hose, it is very, very expensive. But there are ways that we can help you deal with that situation. So as an example, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the regen system for diesel engines, but the regen system on a diesel engine takes the exhaust and it tries to capture more particulate before it exits the tailpipe or the vertical stack. So in doing that, there's a ceramic filter and it helps to filter that exhaust for a second time. Well, in the process, the filter begins to fill up. In order to clean that filter, you ignite it, or they call it regeneration. So when people refer to regen on a diesel engine, that's what they're talking about. Well, during that process, you can see temperatures of up to 1700 degrees Fahrenheit. So when that comes to us, well, our first thing would be, is there any way you can just do that? Because it's a controllable process. Can you just do that on the outside, right? Out in your back 40 somewhere. But if you insist on being hooked up to a source capture system, I'm going to use my 2000 degree hose, right? Because I'm going to see temperatures of 1700 degrees. So with that being said, that's a very expensive hose. But let's say I need 30 feet of hose. And let's say I'm introducing 20% ambient air, like I told you earlier. So I'm introducing 70 degree air at a 20% clip into the 1700 degree air. Well, it starts to dissipate immediately. And then the velocity or the movement helps to dissipate it. So if I need 30 feet of hose, I may be able to do 10 feet of this really expensive hose, and then the other 20 feet of a lower temp rated, lower costing hose. So we call that a combination hose. We can handle the application, but still be cost effective. Now what we have here, this is a project, we do a lot of work with the military, and this is a project that we did at Fort Stewart in Georgia, and these are for Abrams M1 tanks. Now an Abrams M1 tank has a turbine engine, so it's like a small jet engine, and there is no tailpipe that we can put an adapter to, right? It has a set of louvers on its rear end. So if you allow me, I'm going to go one up here. This gentleman here, we've created a box that fits over the louvers. This is all our high temp hose, and this is the foundation for the stack that you saw in this picture. So each tank has its own bay. Each bay has its own capture system, and we're actually capturing that exhaust and we're putting it through the hose, through the stack, venting it to the outside. So In this particular application, there is no blower. What we're doing basically is the velocity of this exhaust at that port is so strong that we're just kind of controlling the air as it comes out through the hose to the duct, to the stack to the outside. So we're able to do this without the use of the fan. Now, the other one I wanted to show you here, this guy here, he's an Iowa farm boy. He's probably 6'4", 250 pounds. So I keep this slide in here just to give you an idea of how big these XL hose reels are. You use them at scale and you can see these are pretty large hose reels. All right, again, this is an example. This bottom one is 4,000 and 5,000 series hose combined. So talk about combination hoses. This is a lot of different custom products. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I do want to make sure you understand our customization capabilities. So this is a slotted fume hood, but a very, very large slotted fume hood. This is actually a tailpipe adapter for a snowmobile. So you get the idea. This is a custom dust collector that we did. And over here, this is a regular size slotted fume hood, but it comes with a workbench and side skirts. And these skirts are hinged, right? So if I'm working on a small piece, I keep them like this because it helps control the air and helps direct it right into the slots. But if I have a long piece, I can open up these side skirts and let it sit across the table like that. And then lastly, this is our website. We've designed it, or we've tried to design it with you in mind, very easy to navigate. So as an example, you can see all the products here. You can get O&M manuals here. You can get all the literature here. We have case studies, right? So maybe you're working on a John Deere facility, you're not exactly sure what your options are. Take a look at our case study. Chances are we've done one very similar to what you're about to do, and we can give you some ideas. So between Odell, we're very happy to have Odell as our partner in your area. If there's anything you need from them, just reach out to them. They are very responsive. And then if there's something that for whatever reason they're unable to handle for you, please either they'll reach out to us or please feel free to reach out to us directly, because we are here for you. We want to make it as easy as possible for you to utilize our equipment. And with that being said, we are family owned and operated, and we would love to earn your business. Cam, I'll send it back to you.
Thanks, Mike. So just we do have a question here if you're ready for it.
Sure.
So does the design of the system induce room air, or is it a sealed system? The question is asking if we always need to provide makeup air, or if Monoxivent has a system in place for something like that.
So in general, and again, we're focused on what we're trying to capture. So in general, you do not need to use makeup air. Now, with that being said, there's a caveat to that, right? Do you have 2, 3 hose reels, or do you have, 13, 15 hose reels that are all drawing in the ambient air? So in theory, you do not need to, because of its focused capabilities, we're drawing a minimal amount of air out. But depending on how many, then certainly there could be applications where you need to do the makeup air.
Okay. If anybody else has any questions that hasn't been asked, you can email myself or Nathan, and we'll make sure that it gets to Mike. Mike, on behalf of our team here at Odell, I want to thank you for doing this presentation, and I want to thank all of the attendees as well. Keep an eye out. We have some more awesome webinars coming up this week and next week. You can find those. The registration will go out later this week, and you can find it on our website as well. Any last remarks there, Mike?
Thank you very much, everybody. Really appreciate it, and please stay safe and sound.
All right. Take care, everyone. See you next time. Bye, Mike.
Bye now.